All right. What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday evening to you. It's actually a really happy Thursday evening for me because, I'm like sitting here just doing some stuff in the front room, and I'm just like, why is it so quiet? And usually, when you have like kids and it's quiet like that, you're just like, is somebody dead? Like, what is going on? But they knocked out. I'm like, shoot, dinner well served. But, anyways, I was catching this blog from the Black conservative perspective. And obviously, I don't agree with how he's articulating this, but obviously, we know he got to get his tokens from the white conservatives, right? But, he's talking about the WNBA playoff rankings, ratings tank without Caitlyn Clark as woke players cry racism, right? Now, honestly, have never been in tuned, to the WNBA. As a woman, yes, I am a biological woman. Like, don't get mad at me because my mom raised me with the grace of a woman and the mindset of Michael Corleone. It's just not my fault. But anyways, I've never ever watched a WNBA basketball game at all. And even when I used to do DraftKings and FanDuel, because I do love my football, I love my football. It's like the best sport ever. Um, I never paid attention to the WNBA, and I grew up around like when I was a kid, it was Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, and those were the big names, big faces of the WNBA, right? But I never paid attention to it. I really kind of thought, I'm not even trying to be funny, y'all. I really thought of the WNBA as kind of like the Make a Wish Foundation, league for the women, where it's like, okay, the women want to play, so let's make their wishes come true. But nobody ever really cared about the WNBA. I think, it's interesting. When you talk about, some of the arguments of the female basketball players, their ongoing argument for years is that we're not being paid equity like the men. And it's just like, well, you don't pull ratings like the men. Nobody's interested in your game like they are interested in the men. And this is coming from a woman, and I'm not trying to be funny, or I'm not a feminist, I'm not an anti woman, anything, but I feel like we should be honest about this. Nobody really cared about the WNBA. They really didn't, right? And even when you had some really nice faces in the NBA, we really just didn't care, right? We wanted to see the men. It's like having a football league for women. It's never going to get the same traction as the men. And, I say this to say that I do believe that Caitlin Clark is a reason why in today's, this generation of WNBA players, she is a reason why they are getting the ratings that they're getting. Now, this is not to take away from Angel Reese because I'm going to get to her in a second. Because what I think the WNBA, that we can't get ratings without cat fights, right? But you can't get guys to tune in if it's just I'm a prettier bitch and you're not, right? They really had to make this fight sort of on the racial side, right? So when you first saw, like when I first started paying attention to the exchange between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and I was looking at sort of the fan backlash and conversation about it, I already knew that these two women were going to be leveraged as this race baiting game to get some of these newer fans or audiences into watching the WNBA. And sure enough, right? And I'm not taking anything from Caitlin Clark. She is a good player. I mean, I think if anybody is very honest, they will admit she's a good player. And here's the thing, sometimes we are very quick to attribute race. We're quick to associate race groups with being the only groups that's good at certain things. When I was in middle school, the best 3-point shooters was this white girl named Twyla and this black girl named Kim, right? And so I think that sometimes we get so psychologically conditioned into this racial group is good at this and this racial group is good at that, that sometimes we do tend to miss the fact that people of all colors can be good at almost anything, if they have the natural talent. So Caitlin Clark is talented, but Caitlin Clark has been leveraged, and none of this has anything to do with Caitlin Clark. I don't really feel like this is her fault at all. I think that she was just used as a pawn to get an audience in the WNBA. And whoever was trying to draw the audiences to the WNBA, they decided to leverage her race, right? Um, and so now you got the Great White Hope in the WNBA having her cat fight with this black player, right? And then you see all these, scenarios in which it would be a normal player, this is a competition. Now it's, oh, you see how they're attacking Caitlin Clark, they're going after Caitlin Clark. I was seeing a lot of stories about these players going after Caitlin Clark, fouling Caitlin Clark, and sometimes she looked like she was flopping. I'm like, what the is this? Right? This is why I don't watch these broads, right? Because it just seemed like a lot of flopping and just a lot going on there. And I'm just like, I can't even watch these clips, right? But I realized, though, that this was all part of a narrative for the WNBA. This was all part of the WNBA narrative to get more ratings, to get more viewership, because nobody was going to watch all those women's dribble a ball down the court. Even with the Brittney Griner thing, right? Like, we literally, got her ass back from Russia, right? And we really weren't checking for the WNBA, even with this little side story that they had with Brittney Griner. It really took the beef between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark to really get people interested in the game. And that may be offensive to a lot of people, right? And I think that people should be realistic that the NBA, the WNBA, they're not getting the ratings that they're getting because Caitlin Clark is just this ridiculously dominant player that she's playing better than everybody. It's not that. She's white. She can play very, very well. And she got her big traction, big clout, being the victim of a black girl who was just doing too much. She didn't have a lot of grace in her sportsmanship, right? And they built on that moment, right? So if you notice, it's about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. It's really not even about these other players. Nobody else cares about the players, right? They're coming to see Caitlin Clark and how she can match wits or outplay black women. And there was a dude that said this before. He said, that new NBA crowd, these are mostly racist people. And what a shame that you got to play the race card just to get people to look at these broads throw a ball down the court. It's sad, But let's just be honest, though. Caitlin Clark is a good player, but the reason why people are watching the WNBA, the reason why people were remotely interested in the WNBA, right, is because of Caitlin Clark. And the same men who were on the mic talking about, these female basketball players, right, shouldn't get paid equally as the men. These are the same men now who are tuned in to and they were saying, "Oh, nobody watches female basketball." Some of these dudes are the same dudes that are watching this right now, just because of Caitlin Clark. And you know, it's unfortunate because, one could say or argue that the rating of the WNBA right now is because they played the race card between those two girls. And people were checking in to see if the white girl was going to overpower the black women in any given game at any given night. And that's what I feel like this Caitlyn Clark thing is really about. There was, I don't know this young lady's name. What's her name? I think I
This
lost it.
is,
She was a
and
basket.
in that way, I do think Caitlyn's being used as a pawn. Caitlyn
These are
didn't
some
bring.
white girls that this is Megan Ripley, the just disappointment soccer player from the female team, and this chick is a former basketball player, and she's saying that she believes that Caitlyn Clark is being used as a pawn. She feels like that she is actually being used as a pawn, and she's not taking away from Caitlyn Clark's skills and abilities. She's just saying Caitlyn is being used as a pawn in the league.
Well before this year. This is not a new
for
thing.
sure.
This is,
Fair
in
usage.
that way, I do think Caitlyn's being used as a pawn. Caitlyn didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this. We've been trying to tell you. And once again, for so long, as a player, I would almost joke. I'd be like, I would have loved to have shut up and dribble. In so many ways, I would have loved to have been valued as a basketball player. I would have been loved to have been spoken about just for my play. I think everybody in the league can say that. But nobody ever let us do that. So what happened? We started to build a backbone, a little bit of an identity. We understood that in order to push our league forward, we were going to have to combat these things. And then you know what else we learned? It feels good to stand up for yourself. It feels even better to stand up for others. We started to learn that people were learning from us and able to follow us in a different way. And who are we following? Black women. So that's such an important part. And I think, again, I get sad when I talk about this a little bit in that we're still not talking about basketball.
No.
Well, because nobody cares about women's basketball. And, I don't want to be mean when I say this, but let's just be super duper honest. I don't know not one female in my circle that is like these dudes on Sunday, or Monday when it's like Monday night football, the dudes that they just know the game's on tonight. I don't know not one female ever in my life that's just like, oh my God, girls, the WNBA is on tonight. We got to go watch that like we watch Girlfriends. No, no. I don't know any women that watched it. And I feel like I don't care about the color of the woman, but I feel like some of these WNBA players, I know what they want. They want the same value as the men. But they have to concede that people do not value women playing basketball like they do men, right? And
No, we're
back in
still
Rome,
not
they actually
allowed
had a female gladiator, and she was actually considered shameful.
to be focused on for our basketball play. And it's not to say we're not going to continue to combat these things. That'll always exist. I
And
think
see, I feel like what these women are doing is they're using racism and all this other stuff as an excuse for why their ratings are low. And really, it's not. It really is. Like, I don't feel like racism, feminism, sexism has nothing to do with that. Like, honestly, these women actually can shut up and dribble. It's just that you may not have an audience that want to see you do it. And I think if we are very realistic about this, right? And I'm not trying to be mean. Most people in society don't care about female basketball. They need these storylines. And if they can tap into the MAGA movement folks, then they will. And that's exactly what they did. There's like, okay, we need people tuning in. So let's literally get this storyline going. And that's what they did with Caitlyn Clark. I feel bad for the chick because I think that Caitlyn Clark is a good player. I think she's a good player. I think that, a lot of people, they're focused on her whiteness, but she is a skilled basketball player. And she has the potential, just like Angel Reese, to do very well in the WNBA that nobody really cares to look at, you know? If the
in the fabric of our
WNBA
league.
lowered the
But we
rim, the
still aren't
game
talking
can
about basketball.
change
Yeah.
tremendously.
Homophobia, all the things are never okay. And
But
this is
those
where I feel
chicks are
like the
pretty
players
tall. I
have
mean,
been
some of those chicks, I think Angel Reese said she was 6'3". She was six
and
three or
failed
something like
the
that. I
most
mean, these are machines.
by the media, and we've talked about that, and they need to really check themselves and do a better job and be better prepared to cover this league in the way that it deserves.
I
But
mean, see, and this is the thing. They are talking about the media covering the league, right? And what they're saying though is that now the media is covering the league, but they're creating all these racial narratives instead of really focusing on our skills and us, our team and our competitiveness and stuff. And it's like really the media can focus on that all they want to, but at the end of the day, you still got to get people that want to watch you for those reasons. Right now, people are watching the WNBA to see the great white hope and how she may flex on the black girls. That's why, and it does take away from Caitlyn Clark, Angela Reese, and all those other girls who can play and they want to be there for the game, right? And now they got to play around these crazy ass narratives, and anytime there's a foul, it's like racism. That was racism, or she was being dogmatic. I'm sure they do want to play the game and not focus on that. But you got a WNBA commissioner who is saying, I need people watching my bitches. And nobody is watching my bitches right now. So I need narratives to get these people watching my bitches. And this is what the WNBA has kind of been this season, as a big racial narrative. And if I'm wrong about that, you guys correct me. But I think that this is how they've gotten their viewership. And that narrative can only fly for so long. It can only fly for so long. And that's why the ratings are tanking.
But I also
The
feel like
playoffs,
they
the
have
ratings are
been
tanking.
greatly failed by the league and by Kathy, the commissioner, this year. Like you said, this isn't new. This has been coming.
You just got to be real.
Racism that the South Carolina team has experienced in the last 3-4 years, that's been very explicit and, sort of in the consciousness. From the racism that Angel Reese specifically and that the LSU team has experienced in the college landscape, and particularly the rivalry with Iowa, two of the best teams in the country with the biggest players and the best storylines, and you have bona fide superstars in Angel Reese and Caitlyn Clark.
So, you know, obviously Greg Foreman, he's taken the position that these women are just jealous of Caitlyn Clark and her skills and her ability and the fact that she's brought a lot of attention to the WNBA, and they've had all this merch sale and increase in sales. But again, I like to challenge, who are these new fans? Who are these new fans, right? And when you peel back the layers of these new fans, these are not people who have just a love for the game. If anything, these are the same people who would have been talking crap about the WNBA and talking about these women should not get paid equitably, right? Because nobody cares about them and that we care more about the men, right? These are the same people, but because there's a race narrative on the table, right? These people are all in on supporting not a team, but a racial side. Most of those people at the end of the day don't give a about Caitlyn Clark and how she play. They just want to know, will she be able to flex on the black girls this game, or if any of the black girls are going to be attacking her. That was the draw for the WNBA this season. It wasn't about Caitlyn Clark just being this dynamic player that was drawing all this attention to the WNBA. She was drawing attention to the league because the league decided to use a race narrative, knowing that we're in this hyper political climate, to make things, to up their ratings. And that's why I think that more people are in tuned right now, is because they know that right now America is hyperpolar political. And that's why Angel Reese, and I want to go back to something that Angel Reese said, because they asked her about Caitlyn Clark. And I felt like what she said was real,
that I have to go
Inorganic.
through that, and now seeing other players even having to go through
Hang
that,
on. She was talking about she was on
it's very disrespectful.
hang on.
Caitlyn is an amazing player, and I've always thought she was an amazing player. We've been playing each other since high school, so I think
So they've been playing each other since high school, and I'm glad she made that point. So they have been competitors, playing competitively with each other since high school. So it is clear that these two women have had some encounters before, and they've learned to respect each other vicariously through the game.
think it's really just the fans, her fans, the Iowa fans, now the Indiana fans that are like they rock for her, and I respect that respectfully, but sometimes it's very disrespectful. I think there's a lot of racism when it comes to it, and I don't believe she stands on any of that. But when it comes to death threats, like I'm talking about people.
So Andrew Reese is making it very clear the racism that I'm getting from Caitlyn's fans and all this crazy stuff I'm getting. She doesn't believe that Caitlyn Clark stands on any of that at all. And I don't believe Caitlyn Clark stands on any of that. I think Caitlyn Clark is in a very uncomfortable position where the league has leveraged her skill and her race, to garner attention by pitting her against other players inorganically. If this was a battle of Caitlyn Clark and Angel Reese, skill for skill, who's getting the most buckets, right? Right? That would be a totally different conversation, but that this is not that conversation. They use those girls to get attention to the league, and they use their race, not their skill. And I mean, because Angel Reese is not saying anything bad about Caitlyn Clark, and I have never heard Caitlyn Clark say anything bad about Angel Reese. Right? They're really victims of this publicity game that the WNBA needs because nobody freaking cares about them on any other day. And this is just word 100. Sorry for the comments. All right. The fans are hating on her because she had a bad sportsmanship towards Caitlyn's success. See, I don't really. Well, how is her sportsmanship bad, right? If she's saying I see you, that's just competition, right? You look at some of these men and how they've come at each other in the sports before. When nobody's saying anything like that, right? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I remember, like, I live in the Metro Detroit area, and I just remember the Detroit Bad Boys. I remember Detroit Bad Boys. Like, I mean, honestly, like, shit. There were so many white players that was rolling with those bad boys that could have been crying racism all day. These black guys are attacking it. Rick Mahorn was giving people the business every time, right? But this is just part of the game. It gets a little rough, it gets competitive, but they narrated it as racist for a reason. These fans weren't looking at those friendly competition type of encounters as it being a part of the game. Like some of these men, they get busy with each other. LeBron has been in people's faces. I've seen so many basketball players flexing on each other on some real competitive stuff, right? These women are going to do the same thing, cats and dogs. Cats and dogs. But they couldn't have it as just being a cat fight. It had to be something dealing with racism, right? And Caitlyn Clark's fans, and I think even Angel Reese's fans, had a part in that because obviously you got some passionately ignorant people who are pro their race on both sides. So you probably had a lot of pro black people, pro black fans talking shit about Caitlyn Clark, right? And you probably had some of Caitlyn Clark's racist ass fans talking shit about Angel Reese, right? So it was probably happening on both ways. But these players are clear. This is all the fans. But what they probably didn't realize is that the NBA commissioner probably had the media like, this is the narration, the racism stuff. And this is really what got these fans. If I am a liar, then the WNBA will have the same ratings next season that it did this season. If people are really starting to care about the WNBA like they are trying to pretend like they do, then the ratings should stay the same or be relatively similar next season as they did this season. But if they are by some chance back to the old routine with this women's league, then we'll know, right? That this was just a race card that the WNBA played to get ratings. Brittney Griner didn't work. Brittney Griner didn't work. We didn't care nothing about her story. I'm sorry. They really tried to sell Brittney Griner. We didn't care about her, them, him, them, whatever they are. We didn't care about her. Even her little Russia capade didn't inspire us to want to look at that damn game. We needed the Great White Hope, Caitlyn Clark, and Black Barbie, Angel Reese, to get those ratings up. So as much as y'all white supremacists want to give all the credit to Caitlyn Clark, go ahead and get a Black Barbie credit too, because you couldn't have the narrative without Angel Reese. All right? You couldn't have your narrative without Angel Reese. So give that woman her flowers as well. All right, let me get to the comments. What's up, Adam Confidential? I see you lying. All right. All right, and technically speaking, shouldn't Griner be out the league since she takes male hormones? That's low key performance enhancement. You know, these sports leagues are just they're complying with the nonsense, right? And I don't agree with any woman who is taking male hormones to be playing with women, just like I don't believe any man living as a woman should be engaged in sports with women. I don't know if Brittney Griner if is really a woman, okay? I don't. There's something about her body that is giving not a woman. I really don't think that's a real woman. Could be. I just don't think it is. I think that is a psyop. I think that's a psyop. Angel Reese is not that good. I've seen her play. Uh, that's another narrative. Yeah, with Brittney Griner, I don't know. I don't think that is a biological woman. They keep saying that she's trans. They're saying she's trans, but I don't know. I look at Brittney Griner's body. I was actually looking at this. Somebody had posted this video of Brittney Griner playing like poolside basketball. So she had on like the shorts, like the male trunks, and the top. There was no top. And I was expecting to see at least some scarring of a top surgery or something. That looked like a male chest. That looked like there was just nothing coming out of that. The back looked male. And I've seen some real tall. My friend Raven is 6'3", right? But even with her itty bitty titty committee, you still see the formation of breasts. Like this was like Brittney Griner has like a boy chest. Like I don't know. Maybe she's been on hormones since she was a kid and they stop her puberty because they do have those puberty blocker things. You know what I mean? And yeah. You said what? And chat like I don't know, right? And I don't hate anybody. You live how you want to. We are all gonna be judged by God, right? I ain't got nothing to do with that. But I do believe, yeah, there's a high percentage of lesbians in WNBA. Why do you? I don't know. I never thought about it. I just really thought that these were very tall women that, they just, they found their space in life. And basketball was, a comfortable space for them that made sense. I never thought about why there were so many lesbians in the WNBA, but I can imagine if I could assess it, it could be just a matter of they're very tall women. Maybe they weren't desirable by too many men. They weren't liked by a lot of boys because they were the super tall person. And only people that were nice to them were women. So they ended up going over to the women, you know? That's what I can think. There's a reason why everybody is something, right? When you look at a lot of these alternative lifestyles, you really will see some root cause childhood environmental or traumatic behaviors that is the catalyst to a lot of these decisions that people make. Um, and we pray for people like that. But, anyways, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think the NBA's ratings increased because of Caitlyn Clark's whiteness? Right? Do you think it increased because of her whiteness? Or do you think it increased because people are just truly interested in supporting these women playing basketball? That people have had a change of heart about women's basketball and that we are just so into it now. And that explains why the ratings have increased. I am going to say that I do not believe that um, people are watching the NBA, WNBA, because they want to see these women play. I'm just going to say it. I don't think most people care about that area of basketball at all. And I think the reason why they got the increase is because they had a racial narrative to go on, right? They leveraged Caitlyn Clark, they leveraged Angel Reese. And that viewership, when they see that beef, that racial beef between the black girl and the white girl, yeah, people are going to want to tune in to see if the white girl can really match wits with the black girls, right? That's really what this is about. So if it's not about that, then I expect for the viewership and the ratings to be the same next season. Let's all look out for that. And if I'm wrong, I bow to being wrong. Have a good day, you guys. Bye.